He's supposed to be. So hard to resist it. He's fast, but not going to come to
You're up. Hello, guys. Welcome to all. We're going to go ahead and start the meeting a little bit earlier today to give our speakers as much time as we possibly can. And by the way, good afternoon and welcome again to our Thursday afternoon of what Rotary Club? The Rotary Club. That's exactly right. Don't you forget it either, okay? Everybody doing all right? Okay. Well, I want to go ahead and start the meeting off with a laugh. DM, Sharon, Kim, and I went to a concert at Marvin United Methodist Church Tuesday. By the way, the sanctuary is just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. It is the Singing Cadets. It's the men's choir. It's an a cappella choir. Well, they do have a few little instruments here, there, and yonder. But the director told this Aggie joke that it is, number one, funny, and number two, believe it or not, it's clean. Okay? So here's how it goes. This Aggie graduates from A&M, lives his life, but he didn't live a very good life. Not good at all. So he didn't go to heaven. He went to the other place. You know, that place down there. You got that right, okay? So, what do you, what? No, that's another joke, okay? That's another joke, all right? I'll tell the UT joke some other time. So anyhow, this old Aggie gets down into hell, and he meets Satan, and apparently Satan's a T-sip. He doesn't like Aggies, you know? So he takes this poor fella, and he puts him in the hottest part of hell. I mean, it's just miserably hot. So he locks him in there, goes away for about a week, 10 days, and then he comes back, and he opens the door, and this old boy, he's just fine. You know, Satan expected to be wilted over, passed out. But he was just fine. And Satan says, how can you be in such good shape with all this heat? He says, oh man, this is nothing. He said, I grew up in, Deep Beach, Texas. He said, it get up to like 108, 110, real bad humidity. He said, this is a dry heat that you got down here. It's no big deal at all. So Satan decides, well, I'm going to break him of sucking eggs right now. So he takes him to the other side of hell, where it's just terrible. Terribly cold. He throws him in there and locks the door. Inside of that place, everything is frozen over. There's frost all over the place, wind, temperature like negative 150 degrees. And Satan says, okay, this is going to work out good. I'm going to get that guy this time. So about a week later, Satan goes back in there, unlocks the door. This guy is walking around. He's got a huge grin on his face. He's just overjoyed for some reason. He's high-fiving the other guys that are in their room. Satan walks up to him and he says, man, what is going on with you? And he says, well, I'm happy. He says, why are you happy? And he says, hell's frozen over. Satan says, well, what is that supposed to mean? He says, well, that means that Texas A&M finally won a national championship. I mean, we know how to have fun in here, right? Okay? Guys, it's good to see everybody. It's a beautiful day outside. Just wonderful to be here. And at this time, let me get out my eyeglasses. It's always a two-step process for me. Lisa Norman, come on up here for the national anthem and the Pledge of Allegiance.
And it's a cappella.
One more way. Just turn the light. Go ahead and take your time. You can swallow. Oh, you forgot. Well, I'm here to remind you. Here you go.
Is everyone stand? We're doing Pledge of Allegiance first. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Tim? There you go. Thanks, Lisa. I think Lisa did a good job. If you would just bow with me for a moment of prayer. God, we thank you for our time here together. We thank you for the fun we have here. We thank you for each person. We are grateful for our community, for the leaders that we have in our community, for the past leaders. Got one here today. It was so good. And we're thankful for what you do for us. We thank you for that there is a heaven that we get to go to, where there are even Texas A&M Aggies there. And God, we're just so thankful that you made a way for it through your son, Jesus. In his name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Oh, yeah, more work. Sit down. All right, let's start on this side and come all the way back around here. Anybody that's just visiting with us from a Rotary Club here today? From another Rotary Club. They won't come anymore because he keeps saying the Rotary Club. Yes.
Sam Forrest from Longview.
Thank you, Sam.
Where's TDP?
Okay, we need to, none of us remember, I don't remember anybody's name, so you can tell us. Sal Tyler.
From the other in South.
That's right. And we're glad to have you, Tom. Any other Rotarians anywhere? I've got some guests. We got some people that are our guests for our second time around. Tell us, Davey.
We have Larry and Kathy with us today, and they turned their application in for us.
I've been visiting with them. They're from Chicago, Illinois, and they just started looking for where's heaven. And here they are. Anybody else over here want to be introduced?
Susan.
Anybody want to be introduced?
Yes.
Come on, speak up, girl.
I want to introduce my guest, Fritz Hager. So, Fritz is very special to me because one, he's a veteran.
Yes.
He's a pastor, and he is an advisor on the Canopy board. So he's been involved with the vision and us executing where we are to date. So I could not be more grateful for Fritz. Please stand up.
Yes.
I am endorsing him because he is running for the Smith County Commissioner seat, Precinct 1, that's been vacated by Neil Franklin. So I wanted him to meet you guys and you to meet him, and he's soon to be an attorney too.
Woo!
Well, that bless his heart.
Bless his heart.
It's good to be here today. As Susan said, I'm a veteran. She left off a 15-year stint of running businesses in Dallas before God did something crazy in my life and said, take a big cut in pay and move to Tyler and become a pastor. That was in 2009. But I hope to use all those, the breadth of that leadership skill. The military taught me how to be a good teammate and how to do tough things against tall odds. Corporately, the county is a $120 million budget, so the financial management skills that you need to have to manage a budget like that and develop that in the corporate world. And then for the last 6 years, I served on the Tyler ISD School Board where we were able to cut tax rates by 6% over the time I was on the board while improving performance I served with Austin as a Texas State Guard, as a command chaplain for First Brigade, where I cared for the veterans and first responders. Hope to bring all that experience to the county commissioners. Thank you.
Looks like somebody needs to be introduced right there.
I have two guests with me today. I have Roy and Sarah Maynard. I've been friends with Roy for several years. She's met like Sarah. Roy and Sarah are
Many of y'all remember me from my many years at Tyler Paper. I'm now with the Texas Public Policy Foundation, but I'm not sorry.
Hi, I'm Sarah Maynard, and I'm running for judge of County Court at Law number 3. I've been practicing law in Tyler since 1995. This court started in 1997, so I've practiced in this court since it began. And our judge, Wood Getz, is retiring after 20 years, and so I've learned a lot from working for him. I'm currently one of the prosecutors in the court, and early voting starts February 14th, so please vote.
Thank you. What's up, Katie?
Yes, I brought my friend and coworker Chris Guthrie. She's the director of accreditation and curriculum support for the School of Medicine.
Yes.
I didn't bring them, but I know. The Hollywood Farm and Beth Field are with the Community Foundation here in town.
Good. Okay, Holly.
I am fortunate enough to have my husband Jeff Lewis here.
Do you know how wonderful your wife is? You know that? I don't, but I just wonder if you do.
Is that a trick question?
David, you made yourself turn red on that.
I thought maybe the way it sounded, I didn't. We're so thankful for her taking care of us. Yes.
I'm happy to have my wife Linda here. She wanted to come because she was in class 1 of leadership power with us speaking today.
I brought my friend and part of my professional team of my real estate business, Kelvin Woodfin with Tyler Living Group. He's my brother.
Thank you, Joe. On the back table, anyone? Now, do we need to introduce anybody up here? Yes.
I have Marilyn Glass, my guest today, and she's with UT Tyler, and she's my immediate boss and my wonderful friend. So.
We'll get you later.
And then introduce Betsy too.
That's right.
She's speaker, so.
I'm done. I think I'll stay up there long. This is torture me. Yeah, I was gonna thank our pianist, but we don't have a pianist, we don't even have a piano in here, so,
We want next
let's-
week.
we're gonna have one next time?
We want next week.
We won't next week? Okay. Well, let's go ahead and bring up Paul Glasser for This Week in History. Big hand, folks.
Thank you, Bill. Today, on the 13th of January in 1982, Air Florida Flight 90, a Boeing 737 with 79 passengers and crew on board, struck the 14th Street Bridge that spans the Potomac River in Washington, D.C. and crashed into the river. 79 people died, including 4 on the ground. The accident was the result of gross pilot error. If you can do that math, means 4 people on the airplane survived. On the 14th of January, 1784, the Continental Congress ratified the Treaty of Paris, which said in part that the parties would, and we quote, forget all past misunderstandings and differences, end quote. Thus officially ended the War of Independence between the United States and Great Britain. 28 years later, there would be new misunderstandings and differences in the War of 1812. On the 15th of January, 1967, Green Bay Packers beat the Kansas City Chiefs 35-10 in the first AFL-NFL World Championship game. It was played at LA Coliseum before a about 62,000, who paid a top price of $12 per ticket. That's $101 today. I went and did the inflation calculator on it. The game was retroactively named Super Bowl I when AFL founder and Kansas City Chiefs owner Lamar Hunt coined the name for the championship game in 1969. On the 16th of January in 1919, Nebraska became the 36th state to ratify the 18th Amendment to the Constitution, thus beginning national prohibition of the manufacture, sale, or transportation of intoxicating liquors for beverage purposes. The amendment led Congress to pass the National Prohibition Act 9 months later, which passed over Woodrow Wilson's veto. In 1933, the 23rd Amendment was ratified, which repealed the 18th, and news of that got to power here not long ago. On the 17th of January 1953, the Chevrolet Corvette was unveiled at the GM Motorama show at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York. With its unremarkable 150 horsepower engine, sales were disappointing, and GM was going to cancel the car. It would have. Ford introduced the Thunderbird 2 years later to great success. Not wanting to lose face to Ford, GM redesigned the Corvette and put in successively bigger engines. The 8th iteration vehicle, the C8, is currently in production. More than 1.7 million Corvettes have been sold through the end of 2020. On the 18th of January, 1919, big day, leaders from France, Italy, Great Britain, the United States, and Japan gathered at the Palace of Versailles outside Paris to begin work on the treaty that would officially end World War I. The onerous provisions of the Treaty of Versailles, as they apply to Germany, are now widely recognized as having set the predicate for an inevitable World War II. Also, less appreciated, the Western powers' disdain and disregard for the Japanese delegation, also credited with stoking the resentments that led to Japan's aggressions in the Pacific. And finally, on the 19th of January, 1953, Lucy Ricardo gave birth to little Ricky Ricardo on the CBS sitcom I Love Lucy. The episode drew a larger audience than the inauguration of Dwight Eisenhower the next day. Birthdays in the coming week, starting today. Patrick Dempsey, the actor, turns 56. Retired now, New Orleans Saints quarterback Drew Brees turns 43 on Saturday. James Earl Jones turns 91 on Monday. Actor Kevin Costner, who's in the Yellowstone, by the way. Unbelievably good. Kevin Costner turns 67 also on Monday. And Dolly Parton turns 76 on Wednesday, and that's this week in history.
Thank you, Paul.
Yes, sir. That's my pick.
Okay, I was going to cash in with that.
Yeah.
Okay, Rotary Business needs your December volunteer hours. Please email them to Holly. Incidentally, you know, the Treaty of Versailles, after it was signed, it was looked at by Marshal Ferdinand Foch. He was leader of the French military. And he just scoffed at it. He said, this is not a peace treaty. This is an armistice, and it's good for 20 years. He was off by 65 days. Okay, our program for January the 20th is going to be Daniel Anderson from the Boy Scouts of America. And now, folks, it's time to bring up the world's greatest president-elect. He's tan, he's rested.
It's tan.
Oh, boy. Please welcome Allison Cameron.
Bill, you are good for the ego. What can I say? We've got two spectacular women that will be speaking to us today, and they both have very impressive biographies. And the first one I'm going to read the biography for is Betsy Brush, and this is just the short version. But I was quite impressed as I read it. East Texas native Betsy Brush is the director of major gifts at the University of Texas Health Science Center here in Tyler. After working and living in Europe, she served 3 U.S. ambassadors, worked for Merck Incorporated Pharmaceuticals, and had an international consulting practice. She served as the director of development for the Fish College of Pharmacy during its startup phase and through the graduation of its first class. When the opportunity arose to join the UT Health Science Center and help build philanthropy for a new medical school, she was pleased to help out and lead another chapter in health education. Betsy serves on the board of directors for the Women's Fund of Smith County. She's the vice chair of their grants committee. She is also an advisor to Camp V, the East Texas Veterans Community Council. Betsy holds a master's degree in HR and organizational development, an MBA, a certified professional fundraising executive, CFRE. Attending live performances, spending time outdoors, reading, and having great conversations with family and friends are among her favorite downtime activities. Our second woman that will be speaking with us today is probably no stranger to most of us. Barbara Bass is the CEO, manager of Barville Investments LLC, and a retired CPA. She's an active member on several nonprofit and corporate boards. When she exited public accounting in 2019, her career for over 40 years, Barbara was a partner in Golub Morgan Petty, CPAs here in Tyler. It was a firm that when she started, they had like 8 employees, and then she helped to grow to over 100 employees. Barbara, as most of you know, served as the mayor of our town from 2008 to 2014. Her service to the Great Recession encompassed innovative and collaborative community initiatives which helped to poise Tyler for future growth. She's a graduate of Texas A&M Commerce. She's engaged in our community and region through numerous volunteer roles for many years, and I'm not going to read all of this, it's exhausting. 2019, Barbara became a Texas auctioneer. I didn't realize this, and focuses on fundraising auctions for nonprofits. Barbara was the Tyler Area Chamber of Commerce T.B. Butler Award recipient in 2017 when she was honored as Tyler's most outstanding citizen. She's currently chair of the UT Tyler Development Board, treasurer for Camp V East Texas Veterans Community Council, and chair of Mercy Ships Foundation, which I wasn't aware of that either. I remember in trying to get this program put together, and I don't remember which one it was, I was rehearsing at Tyler Civic Theater, either for Breakfast at Tiffany's or West Side Story. I don't remember which one. I was in both of those. And I looked up in the seats during one of our rehearsals, and there was Barbara. And I thought, what is she doing here? So I ran up there when I had a break, and I said, Barbara, I said, what are you doing here? And she said, oh, she had some downtime and decided she wanted to come out and watch me rehearse. And I said, are you kidding me? And she said, yes. I said, oh, okay. I said, well, you know, Barbara, you've always got to eat lunch somewhere on Thursday. Why don't you come out to the Tyler Rotary? We would love to have you. And boy, her eyes did not veer to the right or to the left. And then she sort of grinned a little bit. She says, well, that's an idea. That's as far as she would commit. I said, well, Barbara, what about a program? Do you have some program you can give to us? And she said, well, would you be interested about the new medical school? I said, I sure would. She says, well, I can come do a program for that. I said, well, great, we'd love to have you, and I want you to think about the other. And her eyes didn't veer to the right or to the left. She says, I'll do that. So here's Barbara Bush.
Well, to continue that path of history, Paul, it was during my tenure that the news got to Tyler that prohibition had been repealed. And in with January birthdays, I too have one this month, and I will have the 39th birthday of my 39th anniversary of my 29th birthday. I'm excited to be here with Betsy Rush today. She and I had the opportunity to present about the new medical school last spring when we were still in COVID lockdown to the Rotary Club of Longview. Thank you, Sam. And since then, it has evolved because at that point, we were still waiting for legislative approval. We were still waiting for accreditation of affirmation for the merger of the university side of UT and the academic side of UT for our new UT Tyler integrated organization here in East Texas. We have some folks that have really deep knowledge and number sitting over here for the UT Health Medical School. So if you get into the really hard questions, we've got them here to help us. But I came to Tyler and grew up in East Texas. You don't get an accent like this anywhere else. But I grew up in East Texas, and I came to Tyler out of college, and all the way back to the late 70s, folks were talking about a medical school. And when I was mayor, we had an innovative program about bringing new businesses, good jobs, good paid jobs, and good businesses to Tyler. And the story of the medical school came up again. This time we had two great leaders, Dr. Rod Mabry, who has since retired at UT Tyler, and Dr. Kirk Calhoun, who was over UT Health Science at that point. We put that desire, that goal in writing. And what happens when you put something in writing? It happens. So from there, we are here today to tell you that not only it's been approved through the university system for us to have a medical school, through the legislature last May, it was put into the budget, which gave it the monetary support of the state, although we asked for no money due to some wonderful gifts to get us started. And through the medical credentialing, we got the initial phase of approval so that we're moving forward. So today, let's hear about our story and why we think that it's time for a medical school. In East Texas, if you haven't heard, we have dire health outcomes. In Tyler, we do pretty good, not that far off the state levels. You go out to further in Smith County, the results go down. And the further away you go from the center of healthcare, primary center of healthcare, the worse the outcomes are. The reports that we have, and we'll get more into some of this later, are that we have dire health outcomes. We also have a shortage of doctors. There's something glamorous for some doctors to go to big cities, but we have a lot of folks who need health care here, who are sick, or who just need a different lifestyle to be encouraged by their doctors. We have a shortage of doctors. And we need more and better access to health and care.
To continue, we'll do anything. Yeah. So definitely. To continue with that, a number of years ago, the University of Texas Health Science Center asked itself, what is the picture of health in East Texas? What does that really look like? We want to base our decision on facts. And I'll take a moment to say that as a public institution, we exist to serve the needs of the state. So when we say we're going to get a medical school and it's going to be supported by public funds, it's because we do need it. So the 2016 health status report showed that if East Texas were a state, it would be about the size of West Virginia, and we would rank 51st, almost dead last, in health outcomes in the United States. So the research showed that our need is great, and as Barbara said, in Tyler, we are a bit shielded from that, but when you step much further away, the picture becomes absolutely clear. The statistic we talk about a lot is that mortality rates for East Texas were found to be higher than in Texas overall. So what does that mean? That means on diseases, heart disease and stroke, cancer, COPD, kidney disease, motor vehicle injury, suicide, and infant mortality, that more people in our area die from those things than in most other areas of the nation. So we're in bad shape. We here in this room are insulated from that, but I know all of you all work a lot with nonprofits and in your churches, and we see some of the need, but when you look at the data picture, it's even more drastic. Second, to address the current and growing shortage of physicians, and I know we have some in the room with us now, that's real. It's real. I don't know if many of you have tried to get an appointment with a doctor, but I think even in our day-to-day life here in our bubble, we're experiencing that. And there a number of things, but 4 things feed into that. First, we have an aging population. I don't think that's new information to you all, but we definitely have it. And Tyler being a retirement community and so on, it's exacerbated here. Our baby boomer doctors are retiring and they're wanting to retire. They need some folks to take over their patients. And it takes a long time to build out a physician and make that person ready to service, about 7 to 15 years. So what we know from the people that we can see that are already in medical school is supply is not keeping up with demand. That's an issue. And yeah, East Texas is a growing region. I know we have some realtors in the room that can certainly attest to that. They're doing well. You know, it's also hard to compete with Dallas and Houston. And those are exciting places to go for young people. So when you graduate from medical school and you want to start your practice, they're attractive. So we're looking to attract more of those folks to Tyler and East Texas and get them to stay here. And finally, the last one is kind of near and dear to my heart because as I agreed to, I wanted to work on this project. I said, people were saying, yeah, we'll have more doctors and that'll make us healthier. And I said, oh, hang on. Is that true? Is that really true? If we have more physicians, will it make us healthier? Actually, I'm going to disagree with you on that. It does, because I went to the research and I had some smart people at the university who helped me sort this out. The more doctors we have does result in that. Part of that is we need to be educated from the beginning. We need early access to health care. When you take your child to the doctor, you know, you learn healthy practices in the beginning. So preventative care it feeds into that picture.
Obviously, the medical school is going to be bigger than Tyler, Texas. This is going to be a huge impact on our entire region. So the regionalization is great. What we've learned through some other academic programs and training in East Texas, if you get more students from East Texas, they're more likely to stay. We also learned through our residency program that when the residents come to Tyler and they train here, we get a real high percentage of those who stay in East Texas. So we're real excited when we think about training doctors and what this is going to do to expand the educational needs and the medical needs of our entire East Texas region. The learning, service learning and longitudinal fellowships will be important, and also there will be expanded opportunities because this will impact the other academic universities, community colleges in our region. It will create more feeder into here, so it will benefit all the other schools. There will still only be one medical school and one pharmacy school in East Texas, so we're going to have a huge impact on the greater region and the ripple down from all of the other, from here to all of the other universities and colleges. We want to grow our own doctors. I mentioned about them staying here, and we want to move from the brain drain to the brain gain. And we know that in a smaller community, you get a lot of drain, particularly early on in careers when folks finish college and decide to go to the larger communities. We'll have a strong focus on family practice like UT Health Sciences had for many years with its residency program, as well as mental health and the rural medical practice. We will also have good relationships. This creates good relationships with the family practice doctor, and it results in more preventive medicine, as well as earlier detections and treatments. So all of this we think is good for our regions. When we were speaking over in Longview, I had a lady come up to me afterwards, and she loved when I said that this is bigger than Tyler, Texas. And her husband grew up in Tyler, they're in Longview now, and he told her, you know, if Tyler could ever put a fence around itself and not let anything out, they'd do it. So we kind of got a big kick out of that. But this is going to be a huge impact for this entire region.
We brought with us today just a list of hospitals and affiliated clinics throughout the region to really underscore the regional aspect of the medical school. And just I know y'all are familiar with many of these, but we have a lot of good places and intend to partner and work together with all of them.
Hey, ma'am, real quick question on that list. That's quite a geographic span there when you see Port Arthur all the way to like Texarkana.
Yeah.
All of that's considered East Texas?
Yes, East Texas is from Texarkana pretty much down this whole side of the state. You have an upper East Texas, and we're in part of that. We're kind of the central part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Deep East Texas picks up about Nacogdoches County and goes down from there. And so you've got, different parts of East Texas. You've got kind of an upper or central and a deep East Texas. So
we
we're.
can run with Deep East Texas real quick and add something to that. And I'd like to add about Deep East Texas that we're finding that our friends down in the Lufkin and Nacogdoches area are quite interested in what we're doing here. They have long looked sort of to Houston to meet some of their needs, especially medical needs, but really embrace and applaud and support an East Texas solution to that. So we're real proud of those budding relationships.
So like with any great initiative in Tyler, we plan, and part of planning is doing studies and surveys. We brought Rick Perryman in to do a survey for this region. And he said that this medical school would have a 10-year impact of over 18,000 new jobs in our region. And it will add in excess of $1 billion per year to our economy. So I had some friends going, well, are those real numbers? Well, let me tell you about the real numbers. In Brownsville area down in far south Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley area, they were the worst with the medical outcomes in the early to mid 2000s. In 2009, they received approval for our medical school. A study was done in released in November of 2020 about the impact of the last 10 years of that medical school. And what it showed is that they had 3,256 healthcare and bioscience businesses in the region that interjected over $13 billion. And they created 43% of the new jobs, which was almost 31,500 new jobs in that region. I did some estimates on our population versus that area, and I figured we're about 2/3 of their population for the Rio Grande Valley region. And when you extrapolate those numbers, I'm here to tell you that Rick Perryman's report on the impact is right on the money. So if you're ready to invest in East Texas even more than you have and continue to grow your business, ramp up because it's here. Many years ago, I went down to Austin to testify about getting an outer loop. And we had all this community saying, if you build it, they will come. And I said, we've already built it, bring it. Yeah. And so that's kind of where we are here. We have got the school coming. We need to start planning for the impact on our businesses and encourage new businesses that bring strength and diversity to our economic base to come to Tyler and Smith County, this region. So what makes our medical school unique? It's going to be focused on East Texas needs. From family practice, psychiatry, mental health, new departments of OB-GYN and pediatrics, and specialties in trauma, surgery, geriatrics, and more. And then again, specifically rural practice. So Betsy, you want to pick up?
Actually, think you covered that one. Yeah, let's pick up here. So what's been accomplished so far? Where are we? I know everyone has heard some announcements as we go along, and so the Texas legislature approved a medical school, and what that actually means is we'll receive state subsidy for tuition. So we won't have private schools tuition, we'll have state level tuition. The accreditation process we're smack in the middle of, and we're on track. I can maybe say that we're a little ahead of schedule. We're proud to say that. We've hired a permanent dean for the medical school. He will be here in February, so we look forward to greeting him and welcoming him.
2022 start,
I'm sorry?
or is this February 2020 start?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. That is my typo. I'm responsible for that. Sorry, in 20, yeah, I'm the permanent dean, 2020, he'll be here in this February. And other key faculty have been named, and it goes on every day. New things happen and things evolve, and we're just thrilled, proud, and excited about that. And we've received key philanthropy. I know you all have read the headlines. The ETMC Foundation has made a generous gift, and we like to say, or accurately to say, that gift is what enabled us to get to the starting gate. People think that's a phenomenal amount of money, and it is, but when we started talking about a medical school, I'm pretty sure my direct supervisors and executive leadership said, we need $1 bazillion tomorrow. Wow, that's a lot of money. So we really appreciate them, and they have allowed us to get to the starting gate. We're not done yet. What we were looking for, what we need to continue, are really evergreen needs that a university has. Clearly, scholarships. With the shortage of physicians and the opening of new medical schools, it's very competitive. We want to attract the best and the brightest. That's not new. And I know you all have been with us through the College of Pharmacy, and that's been a success. We want to build on that. But attracting students with scholarships is very important, and it is very helpful. In addition, faculty endowments, those leadership packages that allow us to attract academic leaders. That's a particular love of mine, because when you have a leader that is going to build out the younger and the next generations to be like them, I just don't think we can make a better investment than get ourselves the best academic leaders that we can. And professorships truly do that for us. In addition, we have a number of startup expenses. I often hear people say the University of Texas is awash in money. Y'all have so much money. It's true that we have a lot of funding, but the funding tends to be restricted. There are certain funds that can only be used for buildings. There are other funds that can only be used for certain things. But these are things, for example, under startup expenses, the accreditation process is very expensive. One of my colleagues, again, in one of these wonderful fleeting moments, said, Betsy, if I just drive by the accreditation agency, they charge me $100,000. and they're real numbers, and they're not excessive numbers. These are numbers that are comparable with other college medical schools across the state. So we're getting a great thing, but we're not quite there yet, and we still need some help.
One of the concerns of bringing a medical school to Tyler was the cost. And apparently medical schools are very selectively located, and part of that is because they are expensive to have funded. It's exciting that we did get our initial class funded, but if you have family or friends, or you yourself are inclined to name a scholarship or contribute to a scholarship, from class 2 and forward, we are going to need scholarships. Nationally, there are communities that literally pay the college tuition for every class, tuition and fees, and then the medical students are only worried about the rest of the expenses. So just put a plug in for that. We're excited to be part of where we are today, that the medical school is going forward. We had a planning dean, I think that must have been the 2020 date. She's been here for a couple of years, and now we're going to the permanent dean. And we are just growing and changing every day. When I was asked, as I was exiting from the CPA world, and thought I was going to have a few more hours on my calendar, asked if I would be chair-elect for the development board, I was excited. And every day on this journey, I become more excited. Come this fall, we should have most of our professors for the medical school identified, And come next fall, we will have students. And we've got a team of folks working every day on all of the details that go into that. So it's a wonderful time for Tyler, Texas, and for East Texas in general. One of my friends said that, you know, this is bigger than the oil boom ever was for East Texas. So like I say, you know, don't just hold on your seats, but get in for the ride and get ready to just enjoy this community and invest even more, because Tyler is the last great place. Questions?
Yes. You and I disagreed on the amount of doctors making the community more healthy. But I'm in the health insurance business, and I'm just wondering, did you guys take into account the uncooperative patients? I talk to people all the time where, you know, they call me looking for health insurance, and I've got to interview them. I've got to ask them, do you have things like diabetes? Have you been prescribed? I used to say, are you taking medicine? Things like blood pressure, cholesterol, that, well, I'm supposed to be taking it. The doctor wants me on it, but I'm not. So now I say, have you been prescribed? But that's why, you know, I'm just worried about the uncooperative patients. Did you guys take that into account?
The research that I quoted to you, it was not focused on specifically that, but certainly cooperative patients are
Okay.
necessary for the process.
Yeah, because I get one a week where he says, well, I'm a type 2 diabetic. Okay, what are you taking for? Metformin? No, I'm not taking anything. Sorry, pal, we're not going to insure you. Or, you know, I'm supposed to be taking blood pressure meds. They're not. Well, sorry, you're out of luck.
Well, one of the other parts of having better outcomes is because of the UT system buying up the old ETMC, along with a joint venture partnership that we have for the operation of that. We have got clinics and hospitals all over this part of East Texas. So the more we grow access, the more likely it is that people will show up, since they don't have to drive in 30 minutes or an hour to get to their care. So we think that's going to have a big impact too. So Betsy, you want to add?
I would just echo what you said, the preventative and the accepting of medical care and scientific.
We've been out in other communities in East Texas, and they're excited about this, and we're expanding, or we have expanded the board to a regional development board. So it's fun to bring in some partners from other parts of this region. I saw a hand up here, Beth.
So what's your projected student capacity, or what's your target number of students?
Each class at this point in time will have 40 students, so 4 years of four-year curriculum with 40 students per class.
Is that like topped out, or are you going to try to grow 10 years down the road?
That's where we are now. I would, if any of my colleagues in the room want to expand on that, I'll let you.
That's where we're at now. And so after the first year, the first year graduates, we'll look at it and do that to see that. We'll continue to do it.
Yes.
How challenging has it been to staff up with faculty? Because one of your bullets showed where physicians are wanting to retire because their baby boomers or the patient load is so big. Has that been a challenge to onboard?
Well, that's probably more on Kate and the challenges back here.
We're currently recruiting our core faculty. We have already had 2 individuals that have signed with us, and every other week we're bringing people to campus, so we're moving forward.
You know, it's like anything else, we're competing with the entire United States.
Right.
But we have a lot more to offer than a lot of communities do. When you have a community that survives and thrives coming through a recession, and a state and a community, as well as our recovery from even the most recent COVID pandemic shutdown, has got us back to where we're high, you know, ahead of where we were before. So the resilience here, I think, would be very attractive in the strong medical community. Roy, did you have a question?
Yeah, I don't have no reason to doubt my parents' numbers, but when I see tens of thousands of new jobs, I gotta wonder, so how's the community keeping up with that?
Our entire community is going to be challenged. If you look back for the last 10 years, we've added about 1,300 new residents a year. If we have 18,000 new jobs, that's potentially 35,000 new residents for this region. The bulk of whom I expect to be in the Tyler-Smith County area. So it's going to be a builder's delight, but it's going to be a challenge. And the realtors are not going to know what sleep is. So. But seriously, we're going to have to really, but they're not all showing up tomorrow. This will be over a 2-year period, and when you pull in 40 students for the first class, it'll be a slow ramp up, but it will pick up momentum. So I have Susie, okay, Susie.
You were saying that the biggest challenge is keeping the doctors here after they graduate because of Dallas and other big cities. And so what is your plan to make it, besides money, more advantageous for them to stay? The livability of Tyler, like the amenities.
Yeah, the livability. Well, if we get them here through their residency program, we know that we get, 80% or so? 75% of the ones if they do their residency here. But if they're born here, grow up here, go to medical school here, the chances of getting them to stay, we think, are even greater.
Is the salaries that much difference from Dallas to Tyler? I mean, as far as their income?
The salaries are negotiable, but you also have a higher cost of living in Dallas that you compete
Okay.
with, so, okay.
Would you and Betsy perhaps have time to stick around after the meeting and answer
Yes.
some questions?
I know that Claudia had a question and Paul's got a question, so,
My question is, what are you gonna do with all 35,000 people lined up on South Broad?
That's a good question.
my question is, if you live here, why are you on South Broadway?
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Barb. Very good program. Don't run off. Somebody's phone's up here. Oh, Betsy, your phone's here. Okay, and Barbara, we got this certificate for you. We'll get you one too, Betsy. But what we will do is we will donate a book to the Literacy Council in your name. But we're going to do that for you too, okay? Very good program, very informative. And you ladies come back and visit anytime. If you've got something that you want to come in and talk to us about, please get with Allison. And if it's after July, then you get with Dixie back there. And so now it's time for the Ace of Diamonds Award. JB, how much do we have in there this week?
We got $1,323 and 36 cars.
Okay, half the amount benefits the Rotary Club of Tyler, and half benefits the Rotarian winner. Guess wins it? Then half, or 25% goes to the guest, 25% goes to the Rotarian host. Pull out a ticket.
Come on, Barbara, I'm feeling lucky. Okay, the lucky person is 694.
694, who's got that? Dixie, I saw your hand up in here. Oh, it's Fran. Oh, it's not Fran. It's, how many tickets do you have today, Lisa? 50?
694.
All right, draw a card.
Go, girl, go, girl.
Two clubs, not even close. Well, we'll try again next week. So folks, let's go ahead and stand for the four-way test of the things that we think, say, or do as Rotarians. First. Second. Third. Fourth. And we're adjourned. Have a great week, everyone.